There's a woman crying in front of you right now. Not literally, but somewhere in your past or future, this scene exists. You ask what's wrong. She says nothing. You offer solutions. She gets more upset. You feel helpless, then frustrated, then distant. This loop has destroyed more connections than betrayal ever could. But what if I told you that in that moment, she wasn't testing you, punishing you, or being irrational. She was actually inviting you into something most men never experience: true intimacy. I need you to understand something right from the start. You're stuck in a loop, and it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to break it. Every time you try to understand her emotions, it seems to make things worse. You try to help, and she pulls away. You offer logic, and she feels unheard. You give her space, and she feels abandoned. You're standing there feeling like you're failing some test you never studied for. And the truth is, you're not failing because you're inadequate. You're failing because you've been taught something fundamentally wrong about what emotions are and what they need from you. The common advice you've heard 1,000 times says, just listen, right? Or maybe you've heard that women are from Venus, as if understanding emotions is either impossibly simple or impossibly alien. Both of these are lies. They're comfortable lies that let everyone off the hook, but they're lies nonetheless. The truth is darker and honestly more liberating than either of those options. Women's emotions aren't mysterious at all. You've just been systematically taught to fear and suppress the very emotional language that they're fluent in. You learned to cut off your own access to that language, and now you're wondering why you can't understand when someone else speaks it. What I'm going to give you today isn't tips and tricks. It's not 10 ways to make her stop crying or 5 phrases that will magically decode female emotion. What I'm offering you is a complete reframe, a fundamental shift in how you perceive emotional expression itself. You're going to learn that understanding her emotions starts with reclaiming your own. You're going to discover that presence is more powerful than solutions, and you're going to realize that the confusion you feel isn't about her complexity at all. It's about your disconnection from your own emotional literacy. By the end of this, you'll see emotions not as chaos to manage, but as intelligence to honor. So let me take you somewhere. Picture this with me. A prince stands before an approaching storm. The sky is darkening, the wind is picking up, thunder rolls in the distance. And this prince, he's been trained his whole life to be strong, to be decisive, to solve problems. So what does he do? He draws his sword, he points it at the sky, he commands the storm to stop. He shouts at the clouds. He demands that the rain hold back, that the thunder quiet down, that nature itself bend to his will. Absurd, right? You can see immediately how ridiculous this is. A sword can't fight weather. Commands don't stop storms. The whole premise is confused. The prince is trying to solve something that isn't a problem to be solved. It's a natural process to be understood and moved through. Yet this is exactly, and I mean exactly, what most men do with emotions, theirs and hers. When she's upset, you pull out your sword of logic. You raise your shield of solutions. You try to battle the weather itself. You think your job is to make the storm go away, to fix the fact that it's raining, to restore sunny skies through sheer force of will and clever problem solving. But storms don't need defeating. They need witnessing. They move through. They water the ground. They clear the air. They change the temperature. They're part of the natural cycle of things. The wise prince doesn't fight the storm. He learns to read it. He learns to know when it's passing quickly and when he needs to find shelter. He understands that the rain isn't personal. It's not aimed at him. It's not a judgment of his worth or his competence. It's just nature doing what nature does. And once he stops trying to control it, once he stops seeing it as his enemy, he can actually be in relationship with it. He can appreciate its power. He can understand its patterns. He can even find beauty in it. Now let me tell you another story, and this one might hurt a little, but stay with me. You were born fluent in emotion. I need you to really take this in. You weren't always confused by feelings. There was a time when you had complete access to your emotional range. Watch any 3-year-old boy and you'll see what I mean. He cries freely when he's sad. He laughs wildly when he's joyful. He expresses fear without shame. He gets angry and then gets over it. He feels everything fully and moves through it naturally. He doesn't question whether his feelings are valid. He doesn't wonder if he's allowed to feel what he feels. He just feels it, expresses it, and then moves on to the next moment. But then something happened. Slowly, gradually, systematically, teachers and fathers and peers and society itself rewrote your dictionary. Boys don't cry. That crossed out sadness. Man up. That erased vulnerability. Don't be a girl. That deleted the entire emotional vocabulary you once shared with her. By the time you reached adulthood, you were trying to understand her emotions while speaking a language you were forced to forget. Do you see what I'm saying? She hasn't learned something extra that you don't have. You've unlearned something essential that you both once had. Think about that for a moment. The confusion you feel around her emotions isn't because she's operating on some higher or more complex level. It's because you've been systematically cut off from your own emotional range. It's like trying to appreciate music after you've been made deaf, or trying to understand color after you've been taught to only see in black and white. The capacity is still there, buried underneath years of conditioning, but you've lost access to it. And now you're standing in front of someone who still has that access, and you're calling her complicated when really you've been simplified. So, if emotions aren't problems to fix, and women aren't speaking some alien language, what exactly is happening when she's upset and you feel utterly lost? What's actually going on in those moments when you feel like you're failing, when everything you try seems to make it worse, when you'd give anything to just understand what she needs from you? The answer requires us to completely invert how we think about emotional intelligence. We have to turn the whole thing upside down. Here's the first thing you need to understand, and this is fundamental. Emotions are information, not requests. When she expresses emotion, she's not asking you to make it go away. She's not handing you a problem and demanding you solve it. She's sharing data about her inner world. She's letting you see inside. She's opening a door and inviting you in. Most men hear, "I'm upset," and translate it immediately to, "fix this now." Your nervous system goes into high alert. Adrenaline kicks in. Your brain starts racing through solutions. You think your value, your worth, your competence as a partner is measured by how quickly you can make her feel better. But she's actually saying something completely different. She's saying, "This is what I'm experiencing. Can you see me in it? Can you be with me in this? Can you witness what I'm going through without needing to change it?" Your job isn't to change her weather. Your job is to acknowledge that you see the weather she's in. Presence over performance. Being with over doing for. This is the shift that changes everything. Let me give you a concrete example. She comes home from work and she's frustrated. She tells you about something her boss said, some situation with a coworker, some project that went wrong, and immediately you start offering solutions. Have you tried talking to HR? Maybe you should email him directly. What if you approached it this way instead? You're trying to help. Your intentions are good. You genuinely want to make it better for her. But she's getting more upset, not less. Her body language is closing off. She's saying, "Forget it," or "You don't understand." And you're standing there thinking, "I'm literally trying to help you. Why are you getting mad at me?" Here's what's actually happening. She didn't come to you for solutions. She came to you for connection. She wanted you to say, "That sounds really hard," or "I can see why you're frustrated," or "Tell me more about what that felt like." She wanted you to be with her in the difficulty, not pull her out of it before she's ready. And when you jumped straight to fixing it, what she heard was, "Your feelings are a problem that needs to be solved," which translates to, "Your feelings are wrong," which translates to, "You're wrong for feeling this way." None of that is what you meant, but it's what she received. And here's the paradox that breaks most men, the contradiction that seems to make no sense until you really sit with it. The more you try to change her emotions, the more invalid she feels. The more you simply witness them without trying to fix them, the more connected she feels, and paradoxically, the faster the emotion often moves through. By trying to shortcut her process, you extend it. By honoring the process, you actually help it complete. Power lies not in control, but in acceptance.
Strength isn't demonstrated by making the feeling go away. Strength is demonstrated by being able to stay present while someone else feels what they feel. This goes against everything you've been taught about being a man, doesn't it? You've been taught that your value lies in your ability to solve problems, to take action, to produce results. Competence equals having answers. Strength equals making things better. And suddenly I'm telling you that the most powerful thing you can do is nothing? Not nothing, actually. Presence is not nothing, but it feels like nothing to a nervous system that's been trained to equate love with action and value with productivity. If you're finding this perspective different from anything you've heard before, if something in what I'm saying is resonating with you or challenging you or making you see these interactions differently, do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. Because what I'm sharing with you here isn't mainstream advice. It's not the stuff you're going to find in most relationship content. And if this is landing for you, there's a lot more where this came from. Hit that subscribe button and let's keep going deeper into this together. Now, let's talk about what's really happening when she shares difficult emotions with you. When she's vulnerable, when she's upset, when she's crying or angry or frustrated. Your nervous system interprets this as danger. Literally, your body is reacting as if there's a threat because you've been conditioned to believe that her negative emotions mean you're failing, that you're not good enough, that you're not doing your job as a partner. So your fight or flight response kicks in. You go into fix-it mode, not because fixing is what she needs, but because fixing is how you try to eliminate the threat, to make the danger go away, to prove to yourself and to her that you're capable and competent and worthy. But she's not presenting you with a threat. She's not testing you. She's trusting you. Emotional vulnerability is the highest form of intimacy. When she lets you see her in pain, in confusion, in mess, in the raw, unfiltered reality of her inner experience, she's offering you something precious. She's saying, I trust you enough to not be perfect in front of you. I trust you enough to let you see me when I'm not put together. I trust you enough to be real with you. And most men panic at this gift. They panic and reach for solutions because they've been taught that competence means having answers. But emotional competence means having the strength to sit in uncertainty, to let someone else feel what they feel without needing to rescue them. Think about what rescue actually implies. When you rescue someone, you're saying you can't handle this on your own. You need me to save you. You're not capable of moving through this yourself. Now, I know that's not what you mean. You mean I care about you and I don't want you to suffer. But the meta message of constant rescuing is, I don't trust you to handle your own emotional experience. And that, even though it comes from love, is actually diminishing. It takes away her agency. It makes her smaller. What she's actually asking for is a witness, not a rescuer. She wants you to stand beside her and say, I see you in this. I'm not afraid of your pain. I'm not going anywhere. I can handle you feeling what you're feeling. That's strength. That's real masculine presence, not the kind of masculine that needs to control and fix and dominate, but the kind that can remain grounded and stable while everything around it moves and shifts and feels. Here's something else you need to understand. The confusion you feel around her emotions, that's not her failing to communicate clearly. That's you bumping against the edges of your own emotional range. Every time you feel lost in her emotional expression, you're being invited to expand your capacity to feel. She's not the maze. She's the map to the parts of yourself you've been taught to abandon. Let me explain what I mean by this. When she's expressing an emotion that you've cut yourself off from, it's going to feel confusing and threatening and incomprehensible to you. If you've learned that sadness is weakness and you're not allowed to feel it, then when she's sad, you won't know what to do with it. You'll feel uncomfortable in your body. You'll want it to stop, not because her sadness is wrong, but because sadness itself has been marked as dangerous in your own system. If you've learned that fear is unmanly and you've buried all your own anxiety and uncertainty, then when she expresses fear, you'll feel irritated or dismissive or panicked, not because her fear is invalid, but because fear is something you've had to exile from your own experience.
So every emotion of hers that confuses you is actually pointing to an emotion you've disowned in yourself. And if you can get curious about that instead of defensive, if you can ask yourself, Why does her sadness make me so uncomfortable? Or what is it about her anger that triggers me? Or why do I feel so lost when she's anxious? You'll start to discover the edges of your own emotional exile. You'll start to see where you've been cut off from yourself. And as you reclaim those parts, as you let yourself feel sad sometimes, as you acknowledge your own fear, as you allow yourself the full range of human emotion, her emotions will suddenly make a lot more sense because you'll be speaking the same language again. This probably sounds completely backwards from everything you've been taught about being strong, being useful, being a man. So how do you actually practice this? How do you show up differently in real moments when she's upset and every instinct is screaming at you to do something, to fix it, to make it better, to solve the problem so you can both move on? Let me give you some concrete practices you can start using immediately. First, there's what I call the witness stance. Next time she's emotional, I want you to try something radically different. Take a breath, physically turn your body toward her. Make your goal simply to understand, not to fix. Say, "Tell me more about that," or "That sounds really hard," instead of offering solutions. Notice your discomfort with just being present. That discomfort is normal, it's expected. It's your conditioning screaming at you that you're not doing enough. Stay anyway. Breathe through that discomfort. Let it be okay that you're not fixing anything. And watch what happens. She'll likely soften within minutes, not because you fixed anything, but because you stopped trying to. I know how hard this is. I know every fiber of your being is going to want to jump in with advice, with solutions, with a plan to make it better. That's not weakness. That's your conditioning. You've been trained since childhood to believe that your value lies in your utility, that love is demonstrated through action, through provision, through protection, through problem solving. And there's truth in that. Those things matter, but they're not the only things that matter, and they're not what creates true intimacy. True intimacy is created through being seen, through being known, through having someone who can stay with you in your full humanity without needing to change you or fix you or make you more palatable. When she's upset and you just sit with her, when you witness her without trying to change her, you're actually offering her something much more valuable than solutions. You're offering her the experience of being fully accepted in her emotional reality. You're saying, "I can handle all of you, not just the easy parts. I'm not afraid of your depths. I'm not going to abandon you when you're in pain." That's intimacy. That's real connection. And it's actually what she's hungry for underneath all of it. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. I've held power over cities. I've manipulated courts and predicted rivals and seen 3 moves ahead in political games. I could read ambition in a man's eyes, anticipate betrayal before it happened, understand the hidden motives behind every smile and every promise. But when it came to the woman I loved, when it came to her tears and her silence and the way she would retreat into herself, I was completely lost. My logic didn't work. My strategies failed. My ability to analyze and predict and control, all of it was useless. And I lost her because I couldn't understand why my logic made her cry. I would lay out perfectly reasonable arguments about why she shouldn't feel what she felt. I would explain with crystal clarity why her emotions were based on misunderstandings or incorrect assumptions. I would solve her problems before she'd even finished describing them. And every time I did this, every time I deployed my considerable intellect to fix her emotional state, I drove her further away. Because what she needed wasn't my mind. She needed my heart. She needed me to stop analyzing and just feel with her. She needed me to stop being the brilliant strategist and just be a human being in connection with another human being. That failure taught me more about human nature than any throne ever could. The fortress I built around my own heart, the one that made me so effective in matters of power and politics, became the very wall that kept me from seeing hers. The skills that made me successful in every other domain of life made me a failure in the one domain that actually mattered. And it wasn't until I was willing to dismantle that fortress, to acknowledge my own emotions, to let myself be vulnerable and uncertain and without answers, that I began to understand what I'd been missing all along.
I'm telling you this because I don't want you to learn this lesson the way I did. I don't want you to lose someone precious because you couldn't get out of your own way. I don't want you to look back years from now and realize that your strength was actually your weakness, that your competence was actually your blindness, that your desire to help was actually what drove her away. The women in your life aren't problems to be solved. They're not puzzles to be figured out. They're not tests to pass or challenges to overcome. They're human beings with rich inner lives and complex emotional experiences, and they're inviting you to be in relationship with all of that, not to fix all of that. And when you can make that shift, when you can stop seeing emotions as problems and start seeing them as invitations, everything changes. Let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in practice. She comes to you upset about something at work. In the old paradigm, you would immediately start problem solving. But now, you take a breath. You turn toward her. You say, "That sounds really frustrating. Tell me what happened." And you listen. Really listen, not listening for what you're going to say next, not listening for the point where you can jump in with advice, but listening to understand her experience. She tells you the story, and you reflect back what you hear. So, your boss dismissed your idea in front of everyone, and that felt humiliating? You're not adding anything, not fixing anything, just showing her that you're tracking with her, that you're right there with her in it. She might cry, she might rage, she might go quiet. Whatever she does, you stay present. You don't try to make it stop. You don't get uncomfortable and change the subject. You don't minimize it or tell her it's not that bad. You just stay with her. And after a while, after she's felt what she needs to feel, after the storm has moved through, she'll probably take a deep breath and say, "Thank you for listening." And you'll realize that nothing got solved. There's no action plan, no strategy, no solution, and yet everything is better. She feels closer to you. She feels less alone. She feels seen and understood and accepted. That's what she needed all along. Compare that to the old way, where you would have spent 20 minutes offering solutions she didn't ask for, where she would have gotten increasingly frustrated, where you would have felt like a failure because nothing you said helped, where you both would have ended up more distant and disconnected than when you started. Same situation, completely different outcome, all based on whether you're trying to fix or trying to witness. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but what if there is a problem that needs solving? What if she's asking me for advice? What if there's actually something I can do to help? Great questions. And the answer is, when she wants solutions, she'll ask for them. She'll say, "What do you think I should do?" Or, "I need your help figuring this out." And in those moments, by all means, offer your perspective. But even then, even when she's explicitly asking for advice, lead with understanding first. Make sure she feels heard before you jump to fixing. Because often, even when someone asks for advice, what they really need first is to feel understood. And here's what's interesting. When you lead with presence, when you witness first and fix second, your advice actually lands better when you do give it, because she knows it's coming from someone who understands her situation, not someone who's trying to make their own discomfort go away. She knows you're offering solutions because you genuinely want to help, not because you need her to stop feeling what she's feeling so you can feel better. The same advice given from different energies is received completely differently. Let's talk about anger for a moment, because this is where a lot of men really struggle. When she's angry, especially when she's angry at you, every instinct is to defend yourself, to explain why she's wrong, to logic her out of her anger. And this makes sense, right? If someone is angry at you, the natural response is to defend yourself. But with emotions, and especially with women who've been taught their whole lives that their anger isn't valid, isn't ladylike, isn't acceptable, defending yourself is the worst thing you can do. When she's angry, she's not actually looking for you to defend your position. She's expressing something that matters to her. She's telling you about a boundary that was crossed, or a need that wasn't met, or a hurt that's underneath the anger. And if you immediately jump to defending yourself, what she hears is, your feelings don't matter. What you care about isn't valid. My need to be right is more important than your need to be heard. So here's what you do instead, and this is going to feel counterintuitive and uncomfortable. You let her be angry. You don't defend, you don't explain, you don't minimize. You say, I can see you're really upset. Tell me more about what I did that hurt you. And you listen to understand, not to defend. You might discover that what she's angry about isn't actually what you thought it was. You might discover that there's hurt underneath the anger, that she felt dismissed or unimportant or taken for granted. You might discover that she's not asking you to be perfect, she's asking you to care about her experience. And here's the paradox again. When you stop defending yourself, when you actually listen to her anger instead of trying to make it go away, she usually stops being angry much faster. Because anger that's heard and validated doesn't need to keep escalating. It's only when anger is dismissed or defended against that it has to get bigger and louder to be noticed. When you meet her anger with presence instead of defense, you actually de-escalate the situation more effectively than any amount of explaining or justifying ever could.
This doesn't mean you can't have your own perspective. It doesn't mean you're wrong and she's right. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything she says. It just means you understand that her emotional experience is valid, even if you see the situation differently. You can hold both truths at once. I understand why you felt hurt by what I did, even though that wasn't my intention. Both things can be true. Your intention and her experience don't have to match for both to be valid. Now let's talk about what happens in your body during all of this, because that's actually where the work is. When she's emotional and you feel that urge to fix it, that urge is coming from your nervous system, not from logical thought. Your body is reacting to her distress as if it's a threat to you. Your heart rate goes up, your muscles tense. You might feel pressure in your chest or tightness in your throat. You might feel an overwhelming urge to do something, anything, to make it stop. That's your sympathetic nervous system activating, preparing you for fight or flight. And here's the practice. You have to learn to regulate your own nervous system while you're in her emotional presence. You have to learn to stay grounded in your body while she's in her process. This means breathing, literally consciously breathing, taking slow, deep breaths that signal to your nervous system that there's no actual threat, that you're safe, that you can stay present. This means feeling your feet on the ground, feeling the chair underneath you, feeling the weight of your body. This means noticing the urge to fix without acting on it, letting the discomfort be there without needing to make it go away. This is advanced stuff. This is the real work of emotional maturity. It's not about having the right words or the right techniques. It's about being able to stay in your body, stay regulated, stay present while someone else is dysregulated. It's about being the calm in someone else's storm, not by fixing the storm, but by being so grounded that the storm can move through without knocking you over. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. The first few times you try it, it's going to feel impossible. You're going to want to jump in and fix. You're going to feel like you're doing it wrong. You're going to feel like you're failing because you're not doing anything. But if you can stay with that discomfort, if you can breathe through it and remain present, you'll start to notice something shift. You'll notice that you can handle other people's emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You'll notice that you feel more confident in your ability to be there for someone because you know you can handle whatever she brings. Let me address something else that comes up a lot. What about when emotions feel manipulative? What about when it feels like she's using emotions to get her way or to avoid accountability or to make you the bad guy? This is a real concern, and it's worth addressing directly. The answer is nuanced, because yes, sometimes emotions can be used manipulatively, but more often what's happening is that you're interpreting her emotions through a lens of threat, and that lens makes everything look like manipulation. If you're consistently feeling manipulated by someone's emotions, that's a relationship problem that goes beyond what we're talking about here. That might be about boundaries, about patterns of communication, about whether this relationship is actually healthy for you. But if you occasionally feel like her emotions are trying to control you, I want you to get curious about that feeling instead of assuming it's true. Ask yourself, am I feeling manipulated because she's actually trying to manipulate me? Or am I feeling manipulated because I don't know how to be with her emotions without taking responsibility for them? There's a big difference between being present for someone's emotions and taking responsibility for them. Being present means I see that you're in pain and I'm here with you in it. Taking responsibility means your pain is my fault and I have to make it go away. The first is healthy intimacy. The second is codependence. And sometimes what feels like manipulation is actually you confusing the two, feeling responsible for emotions that aren't yours to fix, and then resenting her for putting that burden on you when actually you put it on yourself. Healthy boundaries mean you can be present for her emotions without taking responsibility for fixing them. You can care about her pain without believing you caused it or that you have to make it stop. You can sit with her sadness without needing to make her happy right now. That's mature love. That's real intimacy. It's not about merging into one where you can't tell where your feelings end and hers begin. It's about being two whole people who can remain connected even when emotions are high. I want to talk about something that might be the most important piece of all of this, your relationship with your own emotions. Because the truth is, you can't consistently show up for her emotional experience if you're at war with your own. If you're constantly suppressing your own feelings, judging them as weak, pushing them down and muscling through, then her emotions are going to trigger all of that self-judgment and make it impossible for you to be present. Think about what happens in your body when you feel sad. Do you let yourself feel it, or do you immediately distract yourself with work or screens or alcohol or exercise? Do you let yourself cry, or do you cut it off before it can really move through you? Do you talk about it with someone, or do you hide it and pretend everything's fine? Most men, if they're honest, will admit that they don't let themselves fully feel sadness. It's been marked as unacceptable, as weakness, as something to be avoided at all costs. Same with fear. When you feel anxious or uncertain or scared, do you acknowledge it or do you shame yourself for it? Do you let yourself say, "I'm scared," to someone you trust, or do you bury it and double down on appearing confident? Do you recognize your fear as valuable information about something that matters to you, or do you interpret it as evidence that you're not man enough? And what about vulnerability, about uncertainty, about not having answers? Can you exist in that space without feeling like you're failing? Can you say, "I don't know," without feeling shame? Can you admit when you're wrong without it threatening your entire sense of self? Because if you can't do these things for yourself, you're going to have a really hard time allowing her to do them in front of you. The work of understanding women's emotions is actually the work of reclaiming your own emotional range. It's the work of unlearning all the conditioning that taught you half of your humanity was unacceptable. It's the work of letting yourself be whole again. And this work is hard. It's harder than learning any technique or strategy or communication skill. It's about being able to stay in your body, stay regulated, stay present while someone else is dysregulated. It's about being the calm in someone else's storm, not by fixing the storm, but by being so grounded that the storm can move through without knocking you over. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. The first few times you try it, it's going to feel impossible. You're going to want to jump in and fix. You're going to feel like you're doing it wrong. You're going to feel like you're failing because you're not doing anything. But if you can stay with that discomfort, if you can breathe through it and remain present, you'll start to notice something shift. You'll notice that you can handle other people's emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You'll notice that you feel more confident in your ability to be there for someone. You'll notice that she starts trusting you more deeply, opening up more freely because she knows you can handle whatever she brings. Let me address something else that comes up a lot. What about when emotions feel manipulative? What about when it feels like she's using emotions to get her way, or to avoid accountability, or to make you the bad guy? This is a real concern, and it's worth addressing directly. The answer is nuanced because yes, sometimes emotions can be used manipulatively, but more often what's happening is that you're interpreting her emotions through a lens of threat, and that lens makes everything look like manipulation. If you're consistently feeling manipulated by someone's emotions, that's a relationship problem that goes beyond what we're talking about here. That might be about boundaries, about patterns of communication, about whether this relationship is actually healthy for you. But if you occasionally feel like her emotions are trying to control you, I want you to get curious about that feeling instead of assuming it's true. Ask yourself, am I feeling manipulated because she's actually trying to manipulate me? Or am I feeling manipulated because I don't know how to be with her emotions without taking responsibility for them? There's a big difference between being present for someone's emotions and taking responsibility for them. Being present means I see that you're in pain and I'm here with you in it. Taking responsibility means your pain is my fault and I have to make it go away. The first is healthy intimacy. The second is codependence. And sometimes what feels like manipulation is actually you confusing the two, feeling responsible for emotions that aren't yours to fix, and then resenting her for putting that burden on you when actually you put it on yourself. Healthy boundaries mean you can be present for her emotions without taking responsibility for fixing them. You can care about her pain without believing you caused it or that you have to make it stop. You can sit with her sadness without needing to make her happy right now. That's mature love. That's real intimacy. It's not about merging into one where you can't tell where your feelings end and hers begin. It's about being two whole people who can remain connected even when emotions are high. I want to talk about something that might be the most important piece of all of this, your relationship with your own emotions. Because the truth is, you can't consistently show up for her emotional experience if you're at war with your own. If you're constantly suppressing your own feelings, judging them as weak, pushing them down and muscling through, then her emotions are going to trigger all of that self-judgment and make it impossible for you to be present. Think about what happens in your body when you feel sad. Do you let yourself feel it, or do you immediately distract yourself with work or screens or alcohol or exercise? Do you let yourself cry, or do you cut it off before it can really move through you? Do you talk about it with someone, or do you hide it and pretend everything's fine? Most men, if they're honest, will admit that they don't let themselves fully feel sadness. It's been marked as unacceptable, as weakness, as something to be avoided at all costs. Same with fear. When you feel anxious or uncertain or scared, do you acknowledge it or do you shame yourself for it? Do you let yourself say,
And after a while, she takes a deep breath. The crying slows. She might lean into you, or she might just sit there quietly. And then she says, "Thank you." She might still not know why she was crying. That's okay. The crying did what it needed to do. The emotion moved through, and she feels closer to you now because you didn't need her to be anything other than what she was in that moment. You didn't need her to make sense. You just loved her through it. That's the practice. That's what it actually looks like to witness instead of fix. And I'm telling you, once you experience how powerful this is, once you see how much more connected you feel when you stop trying to control and manage and solve, you won't want to go back to the old way. Because the old way was exhausting, wasn't it? Always trying to figure out what to say, what to do, how to make it better. Always feeling like you're failing when nothing works. Always ending up more distant instead of closer. The new way is actually easier once you get past the initial discomfort, because you're not carrying the weight of having to fix everything. You're just being present. That's all. And presence is actually much lighter than performance. Now, I want to address something that might be coming up for you as you listen to all of this. You might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but what about me? What about my emotions? Am I supposed to just be the rock while she gets to feel everything? Do I not get to have feelings? This is such an important question, and I'm glad you're asking it, because the answer is absolutely not. You absolutely get to have feelings. In fact, you have to have feelings for any of this to work. The misconception is that being present for her emotions means suppressing your own, but that's not what I'm saying at all. Being grounded doesn't mean being emotionless. Being stable doesn't mean being a robot. You can feel your own feelings and witness hers at the same time.
In fact, you have to be in touch with your own emotional experience in order to be present for someone else's. If you're cutting off your own emotions, you'll be cut off from hers too. So let's talk about how to share your own emotions in a way that creates connection instead of making her responsible for them. There's a big difference between expressing emotion and dumping emotion. Expressing emotion looks like, I felt hurt when that happened, or I'm feeling anxious about this situation and I need to talk about it. You're naming what you feel, you're owning it as yours, and you're inviting connection around it. Dumping emotion looks like, you made me feel this way, or I wouldn't be upset if you hadn't done that, or why do you always make things so difficult? You're making your emotion her responsibility. You're blaming her for what you feel, and you're not actually inviting connection. You're creating distance through blame. You can share your sadness, your fear, your disappointment, your frustration, all of it. Just share it as yours, not as something she caused that she now needs to fix, but as your experience that you're letting her see. I'm feeling really overwhelmed with work right now, and I'm noticing I'm more irritable than usual. That's vulnerable. That's real. That invites her to understand you better. Compare that to, you're being too demanding right now. I can't handle all this pressure. Same feeling underneath, completely different delivery. One creates intimacy, one creates conflict. And here's what's beautiful. When you start sharing your emotions in a healthy way, when you let her see your vulnerability and your uncertainty and your full human experience, she'll feel safer sharing hers with you. Because she'll know you're not asking her to be something you're not willing to be yourself. She'll know that emotional honesty is valued in both directions. She'll know that the relationship can hold all of it, not just her feelings or just your feelings, but both at the same time, without anyone having to hide or perform or pretend. This is what mature adult love looks like. Not one person being the emotional one while the other is the logical one, not taking turns being strong for each other, but both people being whole humans who can feel deeply and think clearly and support each other in being fully themselves. That's the relationship you're building toward with all of this work. That's what becomes possible when you stop seeing emotions as problems and start seeing them as part of being human. Let me take you into another layer of this, because there's something important about timing that I haven't addressed yet. Sometimes you're going to be in your own difficult emotional state when she comes to you with hers. You're going to be stressed or tired or dealing with your own stuff, and she's going to be upset about something, and you're going to feel like you don't have anything left to give. This is real. This happens, and you need a strategy for it that doesn't involve either suppressing your own needs or failing to show up for her.
The strategy is honesty. You say, I can see you're upset, and I want to be here for you, but I need you to know I'm running on empty right now. Can we sit together for a few minutes, and then maybe I need to take a break to regulate myself before we go deeper? Or, I really want to hear about this, but I'm so stressed about work that I don't think I can be fully present right now. Can we talk about this in an hour after I've had some time to decompress? You're not saying your needs don't matter. You're not saying she has to wait indefinitely. You're just being honest about your capacity in the moment and negotiating a time when you can show up more fully. Most of the time, she'll appreciate this honesty, because what she doesn't want is you pretending to listen while you're actually checked out, or you being resentful because you forced yourself to be present when you really needed space. She'd rather know where you actually are so she can trust that when you say you're present, you actually are. Honesty about your limits is actually more connecting than false availability. And sometimes, there will be moments when both of you are struggling at the same time. You're both upset, both overwhelmed, both not okay. These moments are actually opportunities for deep connection if you can navigate them skillfully. Instead of competing about whose pain is worse or whose needs are more urgent, you can acknowledge, I think we're both having a hard time right now. Can we just be in this together for a minute without trying to fix each other? You can hold each other without having answers. You can both cry without one of you having to be strong. You can be messy together. That's real intimacy. That's partnership. Now let me talk about patterns, because understanding emotions isn't just about individual moments, it's about recognizing patterns over time.
You'll start to notice that she tends to get emotional at certain times, in certain situations, around certain topics. And instead of seeing this as irrational or unpredictable, you can start to see it as information. Maybe she always gets anxious on Sunday nights because work starts Monday and she's in a job she hates. Maybe she gets sad around the anniversary of her father's death. Maybe she gets frustrated when she's hungry or tired. These aren't character flaws. These are patterns. And when you know the patterns, you can show up with more understanding. This doesn't mean you predict her emotions and try to prevent them. That's still trying to control. It means you recognize, oh, this is a hard time for her, and you meet her with more gentleness. It means you're not surprised or defensive when the pattern shows up again. It means you can say, I know this time of year is hard for you. I'm here if you need me. That kind of attunement, that kind of seeing someone clearly over time, that's what makes someone feel truly known. And you want to be known like this too, even if you don't realize it yet. You want someone who notices that you always get quiet when you're stressed, that you tend to withdraw when you feel criticized, that you need physical activity to process difficult emotions. You want someone who sees your patterns and meets them with understanding instead of judgment. That's what you're learning to give her. And that's what becomes possible in both directions when emotional literacy is valued in the relationship. Let's talk about repair, because you're going to mess this up. You're going to have moments where you fall back into fixing mode, where you get defensive, where you minimize her feelings because they're uncomfortable for you. This is guaranteed. You're human. You're undoing years of conditioning. You're going to forget everything I've told you in the heat of a moment and revert to old patterns. And that's okay. What matters is what you do after. Repair looks like this. I'm sorry I jumped to solutions when you were trying to tell me how you felt. I can see now that's not what you needed from me. Can we try again? Or, I got defensive earlier when you were upset, and I realized I made it about me instead of listening to you. I'm sorry. What were you trying to tell me? The willingness to circle back, to acknowledge when you got it wrong, to ask for a do-over, that's what builds trust over time. Not being perfect, but being willing to repair when you're not. And here's something most people don't understand about repair. It actually creates more trust than if you'd gotten it right the first time. Because repair demonstrates that the relationship can withstand mistakes, that you can hurt each other and come back together, that it's safe to be imperfect because there's a path back to connection. Couples who never fight and never mess up aren't more connected. They're often just avoiding anything real. Couples who fight and repair, who mess up and acknowledge it, who disconnect and reconnect, they're building real resilience, real trust, real intimacy. So when you mess up, and you will, don't spiral into shame about it. Don't make it mean you're failing at everything I've taught you. Just notice it, acknowledge it, and repair it. I messed up. I'm sorry. Let's try again. That's all you need. And watch how powerful that simple sequence is. Watch how quickly she softens when she sees you're willing to take responsibility and try again. That's what she needs more than perfection. She needs to know you're committed to the relationship even when it's messy, even when you don't get it right, even when both of you are imperfect humans doing your best. Now, I want to address a question I get a lot. What if I do all of this and she still doesn't seem happy? What if I'm present and I witness and I don't try to fix and she's still upset all the time? This is important, so listen carefully. Your job is not to make her happy. Your job is to be present with her in whatever she's feeling. If she's upset all the time, there might be something deeper going on. Depression, anxiety, unresolved trauma, problems in the relationship, life circumstances that genuinely suck. And your presence doesn't fix any of those things. Your presence just means she doesn't have to face those things alone. Sometimes people need more than a present partner. Sometimes they need therapy or medication or life changes or professional support. And it's okay to recognize that. It's okay to say, I see you're struggling and I'm here for you, but I'm wondering if there's other support that might help too. Would you be open to talking to a therapist? You're not abandoning her by suggesting she might need more support than you alone can provide. You're actually being realistic about what you can and can't do, which is healthy.
And sometimes, if someone is consistently unhappy despite having a supportive partner, despite having their emotions witnessed and validated, that might be information about the relationship itself. Maybe it's not the right fit. Maybe there are fundamental incompatibilities. Maybe there's a pattern of behavior that's not healthy. Being emotionally present doesn't mean accepting any and all behavior. You can witness someone's emotions and still have boundaries about how they treat you. You can be compassionate about their pain and still recognize that the relationship isn't working. I'm not saying bail at the first sign of difficulty. I'm saying that emotional presence is one important piece of a healthy relationship, but it's not the only piece. There also needs to be mutual respect, compatible values, a shared vision for the future, attraction, trust, and basic compatibility. If those other things aren't there, all the emotional presence in the world won't create a healthy relationship. So yes, do this work. Show up with presence, witness her emotions, but also pay attention to whether the relationship as a whole is actually working for both of you. Let me come back to something fundamental that I think gets lost sometimes in all of this talk about emotions. Men and women aren't actually as different as we've been told. The whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing, it's mostly marketing. Yes, there are some differences in socialization, in how we're taught to express emotion, in what's considered acceptable for each gender. But underneath all of that, we're all just humans with the same basic emotional range, the same needs for connection and understanding and acceptance. Women aren't mysteriously emotional creatures that you need a decoder ring to understand. They're humans who've been allowed to stay connected to their emotional range while you were taught to disconnect from yours. That's it. That's the whole mystery. And when you reconnect to your own emotional range, when you let yourself feel the full spectrum of human emotion again, women's emotions suddenly make perfect sense because they're the same emotions you have. They're just not being suppressed and hidden and channeled into the one or two feelings you've been told are acceptable for men. This means you already have everything you need to understand her. You don't need some special skill or technique or secret knowledge. You just need to remember what it feels like to be human, to let yourself access the parts of yourself that have been in exile, to stop performing the narrow version of masculinity you were handed and step into the full range of what it means to be a man who can be strong and vulnerable, a man who can lead and follow, a man who can be confident and uncertain, a man who can have answers and not have answers, a man who can fix things when fixing is needed and just be present when presence is needed. That's real masculine power, not the brittle, defensive, always have to be in control version you were sold, but the deep, grounded, unshakable because it's not trying to prove anything version. The version that can stay calm in someone else's storm because it's made peace with its own inner weather. The version that doesn't need to dominate or control because it's secure in itself. The version that can be gentle without being weak, emotional without being unstable, present without being passive. This is what I want for you. Not just better relationships with women, though that will absolutely happen, but a better relationship with yourself, a fuller experience of your own humanity, the freedom to be whoever you actually are instead of performing who you think you should be, the relief of not having to have it all together all the time, the depth of connection that becomes possible when you let people see all of you, not just the carefully curated, acceptable parts. And here's what I know from my own life. The fortress you build around your heart to keep yourself safe, to keep yourself from feeling too much, to keep yourself in control, that fortress also keeps out everything good. It keeps out real intimacy. It keeps out deep connection. It keeps out the kind of love that actually touches you. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're actually imprisoning yourself. And the key to that prison is your willingness to feel, to be vulnerable, to let your heart break open instead of staying defended. I built that fortress. I lived in it for years, and I was powerful and successful and completely, utterly alone. Not physically alone. I had people around me constantly, but alone in the ways that matter. Alone with my real feelings, alone with my fears and doubts, alone with the parts of myself that didn't fit the image I was trying to project. And it wasn't until I was willing to let that fortress crumble, to let myself be seen in my uncertainty and my pain and my confusion, that I finally experienced what it meant to be truly connected to another human being.
I'm sharing this with you because I don't want you to waste years of your life the way I did. I don't want you to achieve everything the world tells you matters, success, power, respect, and still feel empty because you never let anyone really know you. I don't want you to be surrounded by people who admire you, but no one who really sees you. I don't want you to realize too late that the strength you thought you had to maintain was actually the wall keeping you from everything you wanted. The women in your life are offering you a gift, even when it doesn't feel like it. They're offering you a way back to your own emotional wholeness. They're modeling what it looks like to be human without apology. They're inviting you to remember who you were before the world taught you to cut yourself in half. And yes, their emotions can be uncomfortable. Yes, it can feel overwhelming when you're not used to it. Yes, it requires you to grow in ways you might not have planned to grow. But on the other side of that discomfort is a kind of freedom and connection you can't even imagine from where you are now.
So when she cries, when she's angry, when she's anxious, when she's overwhelmed, instead of seeing it as a problem you need to solve, try seeing it as an invitation to be more present, an invitation to expand your capacity, an invitation to remember how to be human, an invitation to connect at a level that actually matters. Say yes to that invitation, not because you're supposed to, not because you're trying to be a good partner, but because you actually want the depth and the realness and the intimacy that becomes possible when you stop performing and start being. Let me give you one more practice, and this one might be the most important of all. At least once a day, I want you to check in with yourself and name what you're feeling. Not what you're thinking, not what you're doing, but what you're feeling. And I want you to get specific, not just good or bad or fine. Actually name the emotion. Am I feeling content, anxious, frustrated, grateful, lonely, hopeful, angry, peaceful, overwhelmed? Most men, when they first start doing this, realize they have no idea what they're feeling. They've been so disconnected from their emotional experience that it's like trying to see in the dark. But just like your eyes adjust to darkness, your emotional awareness will develop with practice. And as you develop that awareness in yourself, as you become fluent in naming and understanding your own emotions, you'll naturally become more fluent in understanding hers. Start with body sensations. Where do you feel tension? Where do you feel openness? Is your chest tight? Is your jaw clenched? Are your shoulders up by your ears? Your body is always giving you information about your emotional state, but you have to learn to listen to it. That tightness in your chest might be anxiety. That heaviness might be sadness. That heat rising might be anger. Your body knows what you're feeling even when your mind doesn't, so start there. And once you've identified what you're feeling, just acknowledge it. You don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to fix it or change it or make it go away. Just, I'm feeling anxious right now. That's all. Let it be there. Breathe with it. Notice it doesn't actually kill you to feel your feelings. Notice that emotions are just energy moving through your body, and when you stop resisting them, they move through much faster than when you try to suppress them. This practice alone will change your life. It will change how you relate to yourself, how you relate to others, how you experience stress and conflict and difficulty. Because when you're not afraid of your own emotions, you won't be afraid of anyone else's either. When you know you can feel something difficult and survive it, you'll trust that she can too. When you've learned that emotions pass, that they're temporary states and not permanent conditions, you'll be able to stay present through her emotional weather without panicking. So commit to this. Every day, multiple times a day if you can, check in with yourself. What am I feeling right now? Where do I feel it in my body? Can I just let it be here without needing to change it? This is the foundation of everything else I've taught you. This is where the real work happens, not in techniques for handling her emotions, but in your relationship with your own. Now, I want to bring this all together and show you the bigger picture of what we've been building toward. When you do this work, when you reclaim your emotional range and learn to be present with both your feelings and hers, something profound shifts in how you move through the world. You stop being reactive and start being responsive. You stop being defensive and start being open. You stop needing to control everything and start being able to dance with uncertainty.
This affects every area of your life, not just your relationships with women. You become a better leader because you can stay grounded when others are panicking. You become a better friend because you can be there for people in their struggles without trying to fix them. You become a better father if you have kids because you can let them feel what they feel without needing to rescue them from every difficult emotion. You become more resilient because you know that emotions are temporary and you can handle whatever comes up. This is the transformation I'm offering you. Not just better relationships, though you'll absolutely have those, but a fundamentally different way of being in the world. A way that's more connected, more alive, more fully human. A way that doesn't require you to perform or prove yourself constantly. A way that lets you be real, which is actually the most attractive and powerful thing you can be. And the women in your life will notice. They'll feel the difference. They won't necessarily be able to name what changed, but they'll feel safer with you. They'll open up more. They'll trust you more deeply. They'll bring you their real selves instead of their performed selves because they'll sense that you can handle it, that you're not going to panic or try to change them, that you're just going to be there with them in whatever they're experiencing. This creates a positive feedback loop. The more you're present, the more she trusts you. The more she shares, the more intimacy you experience. The more connected you feel, the easier it is to be present. And suddenly, you're in a completely different kind of relationship than you've ever had before. One where both people can be fully themselves. One where emotion isn't the enemy, but the bridge. One where love isn't about performing for each other, but about seeing each other. That's what I want for you. That's what becomes possible when you're willing to do this work. And I know it's not easy. I know everything in your conditioning is going to resist it. I know you're going to have moments where you fall back into old patterns and feel like you're failing. But I also know that on the other side of this discomfort is everything you've actually wanted all along. Real connection, real intimacy, real love. Not the performative kind, not the conditional kind, but the kind that touches you all the way through. So here's where we are. You came into this video thinking women's emotions were the mystery you needed to solve. You probably thought I was going to give you some tricks or techniques, some way to decode what she really means, some secret to making her happy. But what you've discovered is that the mystery was never about her. It was about the parts of yourself you've been taught to silence. It was about the emotional range you've been told to amputate. It was about the full humanity you've been conditioned to hide. Understanding her emotions isn't about learning some female secret code. It's not about becoming fluent in some foreign language. It's about remembering the language you spoke fluently before someone convinced you that feelings were weaknesses instead of wisdom. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that were exiled in the name of masculinity. It's about letting yourself be whole again so you can be in real relationship with another whole person. You started this thinking you needed to understand women better. You're ending it realizing you need to understand yourself more fully. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you reclaim your own emotional literacy, her emotions stop being confusing and start being clear. Not because she changed, but because you stopped translating everything she feels through the filter of your own fear. You stopped seeing emotions as threats that need to be controlled and started seeing them as information that needs to be honored. You're not broken for having felt confused by emotions. You're not weak for not knowing what to do when she's upset. You're not failing as a man because you don't have all the answers. You were just taught the wrong map. You were given instructions for a completely different journey than the one you're actually on. And now you have a new map. Now you have a different way forward. Presence is not weakness. It's the ultimate strength. Real masculine power isn't about control or dominance or always having solutions. It's about being so grounded in yourself that you can stay calm in someone else's storm. It's about being so secure in your own worth that you don't need to prove anything. It's about being so connected to your own humanity that you can honor someone else's without feeling threatened by it.
You don't need to fix her feelings to honor them. You don't need to have answers to offer love. You don't need to make everything better to be a good partner. You just need to be present. You just need to be real. You just need to let yourself be human and let her be human too, and be willing to meet each other in that messy, beautiful, complicated, sacred space where real connection happens. This is the work. This is the path, Not a quick fix or a simple technique, but a fundamental transformation in how you relate to emotion itself, yours and everyone else's. It's hard work. It's uncomfortable work. It requires you to face everything you've been avoiding and feel everything you've been suppressing. But it's also the most worthwhile work you'll ever do, because on the other side of it is everything you've been searching for in all the wrong places. So take what I've given you today. Take these practices, these perspectives, these new ways of seeing. Try them, experiment with them, notice what shifts. Be patient with yourself as you unlearn years of conditioning. Be gentle with yourself when you mess up. Be willing to repair when you need to. And most of all, be willing to feel. Be willing to be vulnerable. Be willing to not have all the answers. Be willing to be fully, messily, beautifully human. If this video has landed differently than you expected, if something in what I've shared has opened something in you, or challenged you, or helped you see things in a new way, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Tell me what resonated. Tell me what you're struggling with. Tell me what you're going to try differently after watching this. Because this work is better done in community, in conversation, with other people who are also trying to figure out how to be more whole and more connected and more real. And if you found value in what I've shared today, if you want more perspectives that don't sound like anything else you've heard, that treat you like the complex, feeling, thinking human being you actually are, then subscribe to this channel. Like this video if it resonated. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Not because I need your validation, but because you deserve to keep encountering ideas and perspectives that help you grow into who you're meant to be. You're not broken. You've just been misled. You're not failing. You're just learning a language you were forced to forget. You're not inadequate. You're just discovering that strength looks different than you were taught. And you're not alone in this journey. There are thousands of men doing this same work, unlearning the same conditioning, reclaiming the same wholeness, discovering the same freedom on the other side of the fortress walls. Welcome to that journey. Welcome to the work that actually matters. Welcome to the path toward being fully human, fully alive, fully capable of the kind of love and connection you've always wanted, but never quite knew how to create. It starts now. It starts with the next conversation you have. It starts with the next time she's upset and you remember to breathe, to stay present, to witness instead of fix. It starts with you checking in with your own emotions and naming what you feel. It starts with you being brave enough to be vulnerable, uncertain, and real. I believe in you. I believe you can do this. I believe you already have everything you need to understand the women in your life, because you have the same emotions they do. You've just been taught to hide them. And I believe that when you stop hiding, when you let yourself be seen, when you remember how to feel and how to stay present in feeling, everything changes. Your relationships change. Your life changes. You change. And that change ripples out in ways you can't even predict yet. So go forward from here differently than you came in. Go forward with a new understanding of what emotions are and what they need. Go forward with a commitment to your own emotional literacy. Go forward with the willingness to stay present even when it's uncomfortable. Go forward with compassion for yourself and for the women in your life who are just trying to be human too. Go forward knowing that the most powerful thing you can offer anyone is your presence, your acceptance, your willingness to see them fully and stay anyway. That's the work. That's the gift. That's the transformation that's possible when you're willing to step beyond everything you were taught and into something truer, something deeper, something more real. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being willing to question and grow and change. Now go practice. Go be present. Go feel your feelings. Go love more deeply than you knew was possible. And come back and tell me how it goes.